Welcome back, guys. We are here on the YouTube channel ready to document and talk about the last two races with Kubota High Limit Racing. A new location unlocked here. We are now in the Holiday Inn. I believe technically we are in Catoosa, Oklahoma, but we are very, very close to Tulsa, about across the street from the Hard Rock Casino over there. So yeah, we're going to talk today about Southern Oklahoma Speedway. We're going to tell you what happened, the finishing order and things like that. And then we will switch boards and we'll talk about what happened last night over at Salina High Bank Speedway. So without further ado, let's jump right into it here for the race at Southern Oklahoma Speedway. It was just the second time Wing 410 sprint cars had ever raced there before, and it was the first time since 2020 that they were there as well. So we started off with qualifying. There were 24 cars in attendance. I know it's not a phenomenal car count by any means, but there were a lot of other series racing at the same time as what we were racing in, and we're just not really in a hotbed of 410 sprint cars in Oklahoma. So 24 cars. It started off the night with Spencer Baston, a new track record at 13.010. He was quick time overall. Corey Eliason, Brad Sweet, Rico Abreu, Corey Day, the top five. And then Brent Marks, Casey Kane, Zeb Wise, Chris Windham, and Jacob Allen would round out the top 10 in qualifying. Qualifying was relatively fun to watch. The cars had to be right up on the top of the racetrack right off the bat, so it made it kind of fun and interesting to witness. And it was cool to see Spencer Basting grab a new track record there to start off the night. Heat race number one, Rico Abreu would get the win after a really good battle with Casey Kane at the very beginning. And I would say all three of these heat races were actually very, very entertaining. So Rico and Kane were side by side for probably half the race, and neither one of them giving an inch, and neither one of them really wanting to, fall to second or get the lead. And that's kind of the cool thing about the high limit racing format, is that these drivers know that they need to win that heat race if they want to be in the dash. And so Casey Kane and Rico Abreu really going at it. Behind them, James McFadden drove from sixth to finish in the third spot. Spencer Baston was fourth, and Jacob Allen ended up fifth. So it was Rico and Baston going to the dash, and all of the other drivers would go to the feature. Obviously, with 24 cars, we're going to start all of them. Heat race number two, Zeb Wise would get the win, but in this heat race, another crazy thing happened. When Corey Day was out front, it looked like he was going to drive away and win this thing with ease, but then Zeb Wise made a wild move around the outside, barely snuck between Corey Day and the outside wall to take the lead away. I want to say coming to the white flag. So Zeb Wise, a lot of fun to watch in that one. He would get the win and go to the dash. Corey Day finished second, Justin Peck in third, Ryan Timms fourth, Tanner Thorson fifth, and then I put Corey Eliason in the sixth position right there. You can see the other ones do not have 6 cars listed on it, but Corey, I put him because he made the dash. If he would have finished seventh, he would not have made the dash. And so I wanted to put him on there so that you guys could know who ended up finishing in the dash positions there. Heat race number three, another good race. Brent Marks, he dominated this one, but it was the race behind them between Tyler Courtney, Chris Windham, Cy Lynch, and Brad Sweet. At one point in time, Tyler Courtney made a big move around the outside, similar to what we saw with Zeb Wise. He passed 2 cars in one corner off of turns 3 and 4 and was able to move into the third spot. It really didn't matter for him. He wasn't going to make the dash unless he would win that heat race. And Brent Marks was over a straightaway ahead of the second place car, Chris Windham. So Marks gets the win. He goes to the dash. Windham ends up in second, Courtney in third, Cy Lynch fourth, and then Brad Sweet in fifth. He would be the other car going to the dash here in this one. In the dash, Spencer Baston, he would start on the pole and he would get the win. Corey Eliason finished second, and he started there. Brad Sweet was third, Rico Abreu fourth. Brent Marks finished fifth, and Zeb Wise would end up in sixth after starting in the sixth position. So before the race even started, the feature event even started, bad luck strikes the number 26 of Zeb Wise. He was supposed to start in the sixth position. Obviously, we talked about that just a moment ago, but something happened to the car in the middle of the pace laps there before they went 4 wide. He had to go to the work area. It was something with one of the tires or something like that. Maybe a flat tire, maybe a bleeder went bad or something. But Zeb Wise had to go to the work area before the race even started. So instead of starting outside of row number 3, he would start outside the 12th row, and he would get off to a bad start before the race even began. So in the race, Spencer Baston jumped out to the early lead. He was leading the first 5 laps of this one before Brad Sweet would take advantage of a mistake from Baston on the restart. Baston hit the gas. It looked like he just kind of hit it maybe a little bit too hard. I'm not sure. I've never driven a sprint car before, but it looked to me like Baston just kind of got on the gas a little bit too hard and picked up the front wheels up off the ground and had to lift to get the front end back on the ground. And that allowed Brad Sweet to get a run on him into turn one and threw a slider at him, and he would take the lead away and then really would be, I would say, unchallenged the rest of the way. And he would drive off and he would lead the rest of the race. Now, that's not to say that anything else didn't happen in this race, because it sure did. Corey Day would get up there and challenge for the second position, throwing a couple of good moves at Spencer Baston. At one point in time, he did clear him, but Baston would get back by him. He would end up in the third position, that being Spencer Baston, for his first podium finish of the year. It was a great night for him. I mean, he was quick time, new track record, won the dash, led some laps, finished in the third spot. Good night for Spencer Baston. But the race was all about Brad Sweet. He gets his first win after 8 races with Kubota Highlander Racing. He finally got a win, one that was worth $12,000 after he started in the third position. And, I mean, he was pretty much unchallenged after he got out front. The real story behind him was Tyler Courtney having to come from 12th and up to the second position. He would get the night's Hard Charger Award. And this guy, I mean, he can do just about anything right now. That car is locked down at every single racetrack that we go to. 12th to second, and it looked like, I mean, he had a tough night. I mean, he wasn't even over here on this side of the board, right? He's not even in the top 10 of qualifying. You know, he made a good move in the heat race, but it just wasn't enough to get him into a good starting spot for the main event. And so he had a lot of work to do, and I wasn't really thinking that he was going to make it to the top 5, but he definitely did. He got up to second and wasn't able to challenge Brad at all, especially towards the end of the race. Around maybe 8 laps to go, 10 laps to go, the track ended up taking rubber, and, you know, that's fine. I mean, it was a good race before that, and, you know, the fans did get a good show before the track ended up taking rubber. So let's go through the rest of the finishing order and talk about some of these pink marks that I have on the board here. So Sweet Courtney Baston, your podium. Brent Marks keeps his top 10 streak alive. He's now been in the top 10 every single race with Kubota Highlander Racing in 2024. Him and Brad Sweet, the only guys that could say that is the case. Corey Day would end up in 5th after being up to second at one point in time. Another solid night for the kid that really has never been to any of these racetracks, but he's picking up very, very quickly. He ends up in the 5th spot. Rico Abreu was the Durst Dice Roll driver. He started 4th, would end up in the 6th position, and was just kind of there. You know, he was battling inside the top 5. At one point in time, Corey Day threw a slider on him, and Rico got a little bit up in the dust there and almost spun out, but hit the wall in turn number 2, straightened the car back out, and he kept on going. Tanner Thorson was another good one in this race. He started 16th and ended up in the 7th position, and coming to the white flag, him and James McFadden, they must not have, they weren't very happy with each other in this race, because McFadden looked like he pinched him into the wall in the back straightaway. Thorson actually climbed up on the backstretch wall, drove back down, and somehow was able to pass McFadden back before the end of this race. And so Thorson was 16th to 7th. A good run, a much needed good run for him. McFadden would finish in 8th to keep his top 10 streak alive at 4. And so he would finish 8th after starting 10th. Parker Price Miller, 17th to 9th after a couple of rough races. He finished 4th at Red Dirt, but before that he was like 19th and 16th. But a good run for him from 17th to 9th. Corey Eliason, I put him in the 10th position with a pink dot there. He started outside the front row and looked like he was extremely good early on, was battling with Brad Sweet, was battling with Spencer Baston for the race lead. But then he told me after the race that he had a slow leak in the right rear tire that lasted the entire race, and he was lucky to finish in the 10th position in that number 8 car. Casey Kane was 11th, Justin Peck 12th, Jacob Allen 13th, Cy Lynch 14th, got a pink dot next to Zeb Wise. We talked about his issues there before the green flag even waved. He was supposed to start 6th, but he started 24th, ended up in 15th. Dominic Scelzi, Kyle Clark, Brenham Crouch, Jeb Sessoms, Blake Hahn, the top 20, and then Ryder LaPlante, Danny Jennings, Ryan Timms, and I got a pink dot next to Chris Wyndham, who was having a good night going into the feature. His name is all over the board here. He got him in 9th overall in qualifying. He finished 2nd in his heat race and was going to start 9th in his feature, and then got into a little bit of a scuffle in turn 2, got the car spun around. But I was told after the race that he actually had a broken piece in the front end of that car, and that is why he spun around and had to retire early, so he finished 24th. What could have been maybe a top 10 for Chris Wyndham ends up in disaster in 24th position. And it's been a tough year so far for the Vermeer Motorsports 55 team, but they are showing signs of hope. They're showing signs of being fast, and that's what's important. but Wyndham does not get the finish he deserved over there at Southern Oklahoma Speedway. So, what did I think about this race? I thought it was pretty good. Obviously you never want to see rubber, but this place does not host sprint cars very often. They did a pretty darn good job with the track all night long. The heat races were good, and the feature was good for the first 22 laps of it. And with that being said, let's put this race on the scoreboard. So out of 100, factoring in the heat races, factoring in an exciting qualifying session, and factoring in a pretty darn good feature, I'm going to give this one a 75 out of 100 for Southern Oklahoma Speedway. I do hope this race is on the schedule next year, this track I should say, because it does put on a good show with sprint cars. Now it could, have some, safety issues fixed, no catch fence or anything like that. There were a couple of places around the racetrack that were a little bit sketchy, but if they did fix those issues, this racetrack can definitely race sprint cars very, very well, and it proved it the other night. That's what I love so far about this swing that we're on with Kubota High Limit Racing, going to a lot of racetracks that people have never heard of, never seen before, and they're putting on really good shows and putting these tracks on the map. And it's been really fun to watch, and we'll continue to do that next Tuesday when we head to Riverside International Speedway. So let's switch boards and let's talk about what happened last night at the Salina High Bank Speedway in Salina, Oklahoma.